gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
We do appreciate that. But real quick, let's talk about the Hall of Fame dinner that happened over the weekend. I was unable to attend, unfortunately, as I was out of town. But how did it go? Did we have a good time? Did everybody get the proper amount of flowers that they deserve? What were your thoughts on this?
Absolutely beautiful moment watching, some of my mentors be celebrated. I think a moment of the night for me that got me in tears was watching the 1978, 77-78 basketball championship team have an opportunity to tell their story. And, you had the greats like Todd Ward and, and a few other guys along with Coach Hudson giving a description of how the process was for them in the late 70s. For me, it was very emotional, reflecting on my Uncle Manuel Calvin's time as a teenager. These are the men that you molded yourself after, and you get to hear about them being just regular student athletes, man. It was a beautiful moment. For me and Rob being there, seeing our coach, Rick Van Horn, get his flowers was a beautiful moment. Talking about a lot of things that we were unaware of as players and how great he was in his campaign as a Renegade. But I think the icing on the cake was having a guy like Tyrone Crawford in his stellar NFL career come back and talk about how much he loves Bakersfield. His wife is from Bakersfield. He has 4 beautiful daughters. They were all in attendance. Hearing a guy that's reached epic levels talk about how much he loves Bakersfield as his second home, it was just validation on how great the Renegade process is.
I agree. And before we get to your thoughts, Rob, real quick, I have to highlight something just because we talked about this last week with an athlete. But personally, I think that this community, this county, is a gold mine for athletes. I don't think that a lot of people really realize how many professional athletes that we've had here in Bakersfield and Kern County as a whole. But both of you, I would like to hear both of you speak on this of just the athletes that you guys have seen, including Mr. Crawford, obviously, who comes back and speaks about this, but each of them come back and speak about how just they loved this community and how much they really, they're here in where they are because of this community.
Yeah, we've talked about this on the broadcast several times about how rich this community is when it comes to professional athletes. Right now in the NFL, you see it. We've had several Bakersfield residents, the guys that grew up here that have played that are playing in the NFL right now. And I know, Kenny, we adopt Joey Porter Jr. The kid grew up here. Yeah, he played his high school ball in Pittsburgh, but for the most part, he's a Bakersfield kid. And everybody else, though, that is starring right now, it goes to show you what Bakersfield is all about. And even Tyrone, having him up in the booth as well, too, with us on Saturday was even better. The guy was so humble. Besides, physically looking at him and saying, man, that guy looks like a professional athlete, if you heard him and you talked to him, you would never have thought this guy was at all an elite athlete because he was so down to earth, so humble. Everything about him was what you want to know about a professional athlete. A lot of times they say, you never want to meet your heroes. That's a hero that you want to meet. And it was pretty cool. And going back to what Kenny said, watching that 78 team, the 77-78 team was amazing because I only heard about these guys through my dad, who was, a fan of that team, and he was in high school watching that group of guys go through. So he would always talk about the lore of that team. And of course, I think we've glazed Coach Van Horn over the last couple of weeks, and he could deserve another week of it. We could do a whole show on what he's done, but it was awesome to see his son, talk to his dad. They were all proud, and I was glad to be a part of it.
One of these days, we're going to have to sit down and do a whole show about Mr. Van Horn and what he's done for the entire community, because God, would it take about 2 to 3 hours to really get through after that.
Absolutely. Great idea, guys.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the game that happened on Saturday, homecoming. I hope that it was a fantastic turnout because, once again, I even pumped you guys up at Brunch Fest, trying to get the Brunch Fest people to show up there as well, and hopefully they listened to me.
I did get a couple people that were getting our EBS shirts.
I'm just saying.
And they sent me pictures sitting outside of Renegade Stadium.
But we're looking at a 4-game slide right now. What did you guys see during this game? And one of the major questions I have to ask, especially to you, Rob, because we've talked about this for the last couple of weeks, but do you think the moving to one quarterback in this system benefited at all?
Yeah, it was fine. I think everything that we've seen about, what it is to have one quarterback was fine, minus the fact that we had another snap that went over his head. Everything else that had to do with the reasons why our offense is sputtered had nothing really to do with Carson Woods, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He had 6 drop passes, and the offense sputtered super early, and it wasn't until, really the defense was starting to come into its own, and Kenny can talk about this a little bit more about how the defense feels every single time they sit down on that bench, and then they feel like they got to get right back up because it was a 3-and-out or a quick turnover. That sort of thing, didn't happen. We didn't see it. It was a better second half. But the first quarter already see themselves down 14-0, and it didn't even look like Cerritos had even broken a sweat. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that had anything to do with what was the offensive play calling or anything like that. That was pretty solid. I mean, we didn't see too many crazy things other than, again, drop passes. And it was just, missed opportunities for sure. And it looked like, the Renegades wanted to play only one half of a game, and they forgot to, really come out of the locker room for the first half.
Kenny, anything to add to that?
Rob hit the nail on the head. Carson did a fantastic job putting some balls square in between the numbers for guys. And sadly, you have a few young players that just didn't answer the call. On our first drive, we had 3 drop balls, or, two of the first 3 plays were drop passes, that led to a 3-and-out. And then they come down and score with an amazing quarterback in Jeremiah Calvin. And then the next series, we're looking to try to answer the call. We throw another quick slant across the middle, and it bounces right off the chest of a Renegade receiver. And what happens when it bounces off a chest? Interception, going the other way. So when you start a game like that with those miscues from a player perspective, it takes the coaches right out of their game plan. And, and that's one of the things that I highlighted on the broadcast is that, when we lose games, we always want to point fingers. And we can't point fingers at coaches when you got players dropping balls that turn into turnovers, right? But you're not going to hear that in the news when you're listening to the wrong people. They're going to just talk about, wow, the Renegades are struggling. This is 4 losses in a row. What I made sure to highlight during the broadcast was the fact that players have to have the internal desire for their own successes. And as freshman football players, you're getting an opportunity to play, and you're a local kid. And I want to make sure and highlight this point. All over the place, we hear local kids never get a chance to play at BC. Like you hear this from people who are scared to go to BC and they go other places.
Where did they look, man? I see local kids all the time.
Exactly. I was
some 22 of our best players are local kids.
Right. But you hear those kind of things. And so I always challenge the local guys who get those early snaps. You have to take advantage of it.
Right.
Because when you're a receiver that's a freshman and you're starting over first-team All-State guys from Florida, you better make that catch. Because eventually you're going to be placed on the sideline and those guys are going to get those opportunities. And that's exactly what happened this past week. When you had guys and some of our freshman local receivers dropping footballs, now all of a sudden you lost your job. And now here comes the kid from Florida who's been salivating that opportunity. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that because we did have some lackluster play from some of our players. But I definitely want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Ian Jernigan was local the reason that our offense got going. Like we threw a throwback screen to him and he took it 60, 70 yards. he was the one player that I can tell took it upon himself to do everything he could to make us better in a losing effort.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's wild to me that people have that gripe against BC, because some of the biggest dogs I've watched on this team the last couple years have been local boys. I mean, Brock Bowers, we talk about this show all the time, Cameron Pachenko. Yeah. Right. I mean, again, there's a ton of them. That's wild to me.
But to get away from last week's game, I mean, we got a road game this week out at Fullerton. Any good matchups, anything we should keep an eye out on?
Yes, defensively, and I'm gonna let Rob take off on the offense. But defensively, there's a name that's synonymous with big time play on the defensive end, and they have a kid in Paul Malu who basically wrecking shop on their defense. He has
Troy?
4.5 sacks. You know, you got to wonder if this kid is related to Troy, because the way he's playing and his stat line, we're going to have to make sure we keep an eye on him and focus on him defensively.
Is this a defensive end? What position are we talking here?
He's going to be a safety.
Is he?
Outside backer.
Lord.
You know, so you know, it's one of those guys that flies around to the football, man. I can't wait to see this kid play.
Now I need to know if it's a descendant of Troy. That's going to be interesting. Rob, what are we looking at on the offensive side?
Over there, they've got another capable quarterback. This is going to be, you know, out of the in 7 games, is going to be the 15 that has dedicated themselves to a quarterback, and he's averaging over 200 yards a game, and he's definitely got some capable receivers. For sure, he's got 3 guys over 400 yards. These guys, you know, again, they're catching the football. 3 guys over 300 yards. But you know, for the most part, what I see is that this is truly a basketball on grass type of team, because they are averaging 45 points. They're averaging 450 yards per game, but they're giving up 400 yards per game as well, too. So it seems to me like that Palomalo kid might be the only kid on defense that's really doing anything, because if you're giving up 400 yards average per game and you're still 5-1 and ranked number 9 in the state, that's kind of saying something. So this is an opportunity for the Renegades offense, Carson Woods, to really shine here. If there's ever going to be an opportunity for them to see a defense in the next 3 games or the next 4 games that is going to allow you to do some things, this is going to be the game. And, you know, I have a feeling that, you know, between Coach Dean, Coach Dameron, those guys on the offensive side of the ball, they're going to be scheming something up here, because, you know, as much as we have given credit to the defense and they set the table, the excitement and the flow all has come from the offense in past years. When BC is going good, it's because that offense is going good.
Absolutely. And I mean, anytime you have a Palomalo on the defensive side, I'm pretty sure that's all you need. I mean, as a USC fan, I could say that at some point. Game is at 2 p.m. on Saturday. You can listen to it on our sister station at Kern Radio with Kenny Calvin and Rob Chavez, giving you all the ins and outs of the game. And then real quick before I let you guys go, Rob, it's a big weekend for us, baby. Notre Dame. What are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good, especially after the fact that they've got a lot to say, chirping pretty loud. And my guy Steve Walford was there in the stadium, and he said it didn't even look like Michigan got off the bus, that Notre Dame is going to be next. And I'm sticking with that. I've got a lot of confidence, man.
Number 1 offense in college ball. I will put money on it right now. I know not statistically, but this is the best offense in college ball, and I will put money on it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time as always. We will talk to you guys next week. Good luck this weekend.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you. We'll take a break real quick, pay some bills. This is the Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield.